Well, Jake Browning has to feel good. Bengals T. Higgins feels 100% plans to play against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's right. He practiced in limited fashion yesterday. We'll see what ends up happening today. But it looks like if everything is going to go correctly here, he's going to play against the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is what he had to say. My health is way more important than any other thing. You know what I'm saying? Higgins said on Thursday. My thing was I went to get healthy so I can be 100% to go out there and play at 100% and help my team come out with a W. I thought it would have been a little strain or something like that. But obviously, we went in and got pictures and it was a little worse than we thought. And that usually happens when it comes to injuries, let's be honest. You know, sometimes you kind of go in with a positive attitude, think, okay, best case scenario, this is what's going to happen. And then, bam, it could be the opposite. And now you're finding yourself in a really bad spot. And you just kind of have to slowly recover and get better over time, right? Injuries suck for that said reason. You never know what's going to happen when it comes to how bad they're going to end up being. I mean, we've seen many, many times in NFL careers where we think, okay, though, this injury is not too bad, and then it derails the whole entire career. Andrew Luck's a good example of that. T is one of the top receivers in the NFL, Browning said on Thursday. I don't think you can really put into words how important he is to this offense. And I agree with that. He's very important. Especially when you have to double, if not triple, Jamar Chase in certain situations. When you take him out of the game, having T, it just completely changes it. Because we saw when they tried to take him out of the game against, what game was that? Not Texans, Bills game. Bills game. Look at the Bills game. When they tried to take they tried to take Jamar Chase out of that game. T. Higgins had over 100 yards in that game. And if you shut down one side, you can't shut down both of them. And so it just adds a different dynamic to this offense. And obviously, T being hurt so much this year, it's definitely hindered the offense a tad bit. Now, I'm not going to sit here and let, any coach here get a excuse on why our offense has been struggling. I think it has been play calling. And at the same time, you have to, as an offense, overcome injuries. I know it sucks, but you have to figure something out. You have to figure out a way past this and a way to deal with adversity because T. Higgins isn't going to be on this team forever. So if your idea is, well, we don't have T, clearly that's why we're bad, clearly that's why we can't get the job done, then that's a piss poor excuse because at the end of the day, you have to make do who you have. No player, no matter who it is going to be in every single game, no matter what, throughout the whole entire career. It's how you as a team deal with the player getting injured or deal with the adversity is how you're able to overcome it. So, again, like I said, it's definitely a huge loss for us not to have him in the last couple of weeks. And I'll definitely tell you right now, if we had him, things would be a little bit different. But not to a point where I feel like we would have won every single game if we had him. But it definitely would have helped us out a lot. But go back to the Seahawks game. T. Higgins played that game, and our offense in the second half scored 3 points. So there is still a huge thing about play calling. Going down a little bit farther here, T. Higgins said, my only thing is I want to help this team. Higgins said, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm healthy. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, listen, T, and I said this many times, I believe he'll get franchise tagged at the end of this year. And he will be playing for us next year on a 1-year, $25 million contract. That's what the franchise tag is for wide receivers. It's a average of the top 3 wide receivers in the NFL. Well, it's the top 3 average of that position, but wide receivers is what we're talking about. So it's $25 million for 1 year. He's going to get that. We're going to franchise tag him. We're probably going to try to work out a long-term contract with the guy, and we're going to see where that ends up going and how that ends up turning out. Now, obviously, him coming back now at this point, now week 13, there's still a chance we could make the playoffs. And I know it's crazy to say that because at the end of the day, it's like, come on, man. We're not going to make the playoffs. And the sad part is, I say the sad part is, the only reason I say sad here is because the fact that because we can still, we're going to try our best in every way possible to make the playoffs. And, that might not be the best for us long term, but it's going to be, for the short term right now, what we're going to be doing. And if that's the case, then having our stars in there, T's going to go out there and try to win every single game. Same thing with Jamar Chase, same thing with Jake Browning, etc. So, looking at this, I said this before, but in case you're new, we can win 3, lose 3, and make the playoffs. Now, what has to happen for us to make the playoffs? That's a lot, okay? That's a lot. Realistically speaking, and this is not in any particular order, by the way. So, for example, let's say we beat the Steelers, we lose to the Chiefs, let's say we lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You could still make the playoffs with these case scenarios. Obviously, the more games you lose, the worse you're going to be, worst proportion you're going to be on. But you can still make the playoffs, and it's still possible, right? I mean, Cardinals beat the Steelers. That would be huge for us. I think that is very logical. That could happen. Texans beat the Broncos. Again, another game that could happen. Rams beat the Browns. And, these cases as you're going down here isn't really too crazy of things that could happen. For example, the Bears could beat the Browns. The Bears just beat the Vikings. The Browns lost to the Broncos. So, depending on the quarterback situation, depending on how everything's going to go there, Cowboys could beat the Bills. Patriots could beat the Broncos. I don't think that's really going to happen, I'll be honest with you. But Texans beat the Browns, I think that's logical. So as long as things go our way, and yes, at the end of the day, we would need, 1,000 things to go our way, depending on how many losses we have. It's possible. And I think at the end of the day, again, as I always say, as long as there's a chance, as long as there's a will, there's a way, right? And that's kind of how we're going to look at it. So, T being back definitely, impacts this offense a lot in the aspect of now we have another weapon in there. Our offense should get going a tad bit better. We played a very tough defense this week in Jacksonville. Colts defense is kind of mid. Vikings defense kind of mid. Then we played a really good defense with the Steelers. And then the Chiefs actually this year have really good defense. So yeah, I played another really good defense with the Chiefs. And then one of the best in the league with the Browns. So it's possible. Again, like I said, I do believe, if I'm being honest here, and I'm trying to be realistic as possible for the rest of this year, I think we rattle off some wins versus the Colts and the Vikings. It's really going to come down to this week. I still think we beat the Browns if and only if. Two things. One, quarterback situation, DTR is out. There is no DTR. Number two, I would say, is if they already have a playoff spot, and by the time we play them, they just simply are putting in their backups. That's really how I see it. But these 3 games, it's going to be very difficult. Now, with T. Higgins in there, it's going to be a little bit easier in aspects of not having to deal with zero offense. But, again, like I said, once we get into that rabbit hole, we're going down the whole entire rabbit hole. And it's a never-ending journey to figure out what needs to happen, what doesn't need to happen. I mean, you're going to talk about one single game not going our way could completely end that season off, which, at the end of the day, I said, I would love the dream scenario here is to lose and get picks, get the best pick possible, get the best player possible, and then be able to slowly, grind out that way. Just not how it's going to work, They're going to try to win every single game, and we'll see what ends up happening. But as you can see here, even if we lose, 3-3 here, as you know, I actually have us losing, 3-3 here. These are all the things that have to happen for us to make the playoffs. And it's a good amount. Like, it's one of those situations where everything, dream scenarios have to happen. And again, at the end of the day, you can always make the argument, well, what's the point, though? You make the playoffs, what are we going to do when we make the playoffs? Yeah, that's the thing that sucks. It's like teams that make the playoffs, but they're one and done every time they make the playoffs. And it doesn't really matter. It keeps coaches around if you make the playoffs, so that's pretty much how that always works. But yeah, 100% chance to make the playoffs. That's if you go 3-3, so it's still possible. Tell me down below your thoughts and opinions, though. I'll see you guys next one. Peace.